Hello there and welcome everyone to our first session of the Sales Generation Virtual Conference. This is Amy Palmer, your Fear Bustin' Sales Coach, and I'm looking forward to spending time with you over the next couple of weeks. In the meantime, before we get started, if you could just quickly click the raised hand button to confirm that you can, oops, wait a minute, can you see my screen? I can't really, oh yes, it looks like you should be able to see my screen. So go ahead and click the raised hand button if you can see my screen. Fabulous, fabulous. Okay, and just a little bit of logistics. I can, because I kept this to a relatively small group for this program, so I'm excited about that because what that means is that I can open the lines, the telephone lines at any given time, and we won't be bombarded with lots of feedback in terms of the audio level and everything. So basically how I'm going to do this is I'm going to go through the content for the first hour, a little over an hour, and while I'm going through the content, if you have a question, just click the raised hand button and I can unmute you. I believe that it looks like pretty much all of you are listening to me through your computer speakers. So depending on whether or not you have a good microphone or not, you should be able to ask any questions that you want. We can hear you personally. If you don't have a microphone or you're not sure how well it works, of course you can always use the little question box that's on your control panel. And then after we're done going through the content, I will open up all of the lines to answer any questions that you might have, to hear any feedback that you might have, anything at that point. All right, so before I get to the agenda, I do want to share a bit of program logistics with you, and I wanted to make sure that everyone knows about the blog that we have for this group. This is sort of the easiest way for me to be able to constantly update and change and give you additional information and resources for the program. So when this course is over, or when this class is over tonight, if you can go online and go to www.thesalesgeneration.wordpress.com, and you'll find this blog. And it will be where I keep the copies of the recordings of all these sessions, as well as any additional course material. So you'll see here that we have on the welcome page, we have the basic schedule and curriculum of what's coming. I'll probably add a couple of other little items to this front page, but this is your basic schedule. Then at the very top of the page, some people miss it, the tabs on this format are up at the top of the page. So we have webinar access details, so you can click on that. This is a protected page, so the first time that you access it from your computer, it'll come up asking for a password. So the password for all of these pages is July in all capital letters. And that will give you, here's where I'm housing the link to our webinar sessions. So, in case you ever forget it or misplace it, it'll be here on this blog. And then this middle tab, course materials and recordings, is also a protected page because I don't want all this information just available to the public, just for the class. And I have a list of materials and recordings. These first two links, one is to the sales generating blueprint, which I asked each of you to fill out and submit to me. And I know we had some issues with the PDF document. If you have problems with the PDF, let me know. I'll send you the Word document. But basically what you need to do with this, if you haven't already, and I have received copies from about half of you, what you need to do is you download the document first. So you can click on it, it'll allow you to download it. Once you download it to your computer, then you go back and fill it out, and then you can email it to me. And then the next piece of material that I shared with you is the Sales Generation Workbook that you can use to take notes during the sessions. Now you can either print it out and take notes by hand if you'd like, or if you are more electronically inclined, you can use it right on your computer. While we are delivering this information in webinar format, you can sort of have your screen up and be filling out notes as we go through things as well. And then below there is where I have the recordings. And I put in the 3 intro webinars that we had that led up to this class. And if you haven't been able to attend all 3, I think most of you attended at least one of these, and some of you may have attended 2 of them. I would strongly recommend that you listen into any of the ones that you hadn't yet listened to, because it lays a lot of good foundation and groundwork for information that we're going to be covering together in the next couple of weeks. And so we can sort of, instead of starting from ground zero, we can kind of build on where we left off from. So I highly recommend that you take a look at those at your convenience. And then after each of these sessions, when the recording processes, I'll post it up here too. So if for some reason you can't make it sometime over the next couple of weeks during our sessions, you have access to the recording. I will be uploading it probably first thing the next morning. Okay. Then the last tab is the bonus tab, and that's where I put additional recordings. Well, actually 2 of them are the intros, but the other 2, 3 tips to triple your sales in 3 months, is a webinar that I did last year. Actually, it's a teleclass. It's not a webinar. Sorry, it's MP3 format. And then a loving kick in the you-know-what sales boost webinar that I did at the beginning of this year that I got a lot of really rave reviews on. It was about sort of getting yourself out of that slump. So those are 2 additional bonuses for participants in this class. Now, last but not least, the final bonus that you get as part of the Sales Generation Virtual Conference is you get a one-on-one private sales generating session with me. And sometime in the next couple of days, I'm going to email you a link to my appointment calendar, and you can reserve your time for your session. I do recommend that you wait until after we cover all of our sessions first, because that way we've covered all the information, and then we can kind of get down to focusing in on you and which pieces of what you learned I recommend that you apply first, so we can sort of game plan from that standpoint. All right, let me see if I covered everything. Oh, last but not least, our Facebook group. When I have virtual boot camps like this, conferences, etc., I do find that it benefits to be able to not only have access to me throughout the program, but to be able to have access to other participants as well. So I have created a private Facebook group. The public will know that you're a member of it, but they won't be able to see anything that's going on within the group. All you have to do to join is send me a Facebook request. I think I got a couple of Facebook requests from a few of you tonight, but send me a Facebook request first, and then I will add you to the group. And to find me on Facebook, I'm under Amy A. Palmer 1. So if you go facebook.com/Amy A. Palmer 1. So you can connect with me, and then that way you can connect with your fellow participants as well. All right. That's all the logistical information. So let's get down to business here. All right. So what you see on your screen right now is an overall view of everything that we are going to cover together. And we're going to be digging in deeper to each of these particular topics. And tonight we're going to work on the first step of building your customized sales generating blueprint, and that is focus. So we'll cover that particular piece. let me tell you a little bit about why I put together the sales generation, what the purpose is behind this. I believe that most of you who are with me tonight are familiar with a little bit about my background and where I come from and everything, but let me tell you a little bit about how this came about. When I launched my company a little over 6 years ago, 6.5 years ago, it was a sales, coaching, and consulting business, and I had come just from corporate sales. I was vice president of sales for a pretty large organization, and then I decided I wanted to launch my own thing. And I was very quickly able to secure several corporate clients, several large company clients. And a lot of that was, well, a couple of reasons. One reason was because I had a lot of contacts in all my years of different corporate positions. I had a lot of contacts with people in different companies. So that was, I was pretty quickly able to turn a lot of those into contracts and projects. So that was awesome. And at the same time, I was out doing the things that you do when you start a new business. You know, I was getting to know people in my area. I was networking a lot. I was learning. I was really, you know, soaking up as much information as I could, looking for coaches, reading, attending teleclasses, you know, you name it, I was doing it. And when I was out networking and meeting people, and I was crossing paths with a lot of small business owners, one of the things that I noticed over time was that I had a huge advantage over them. As I was a new small business owner, they were a new small business owner, and things were coming together pretty, I don't want to say easy, but gracefully for me. And I heard from more and more people who were struggling with it a little bit. And it became very clear to me that part of my background and skills that I take for granted, you know, a lot of the skills and techniques and strategies that I've learned at various corporations and through various huge training programs, those skills that came to me over time put me at an advantage. So it put me at an advantage on a couple different levels. I already came into small business ownership knowing how to sell, enjoying it, and knowing how to put a plan together. And I was meeting more and more people who had awesome stuff that they were doing, but were struggling because they didn't bring that to the table automatically. So I pretty quickly recognized how badly they needed the knowledge that I had to share. And so I slowly over time started putting together content and information and material to share with them. But in the meantime, most of my business was still really dependent on large company, large corporate contracts. That's what was paying my mortgage, essentially. And then what happened is over time I started sort of on the side, I'd have individual small business owner clients. I'd have one here, one there, a little along the way. And pretty soon I learned that I was feeling much more fulfilled helping out the small business owners than I was working for the large companies. I was getting a lot more out of it. They were a lot more appreciative and receptive to what I was teaching a lot of the times. And it was just a better situation. So in the last couple of years, I've been working to make that transition from being somebody who works for large companies to being somebody who helps that small business owner. And so that's where the sales generation was born. I just started pulling together this whole process of what does it take, soup to nuts, to put together a customized sales blueprint for your business. And I'm using all of the basic concepts that I knew from corporate sales and have added different nuances along the way that apply to small businesses. So that's basically how this came to be and why I'm reaching out to small business owners and want to reach out to more and more of them and bring them this information. So now I want to ask I want to talk to you. I want to find out from you. First of all, to get an idea of who is in this program, who's attending. What I'm looking for is your name, where you're calling in from, and not necessarily a description of your company. What I want is the #1 benefit that your customers get from your product or service. So I'm looking for your name, where you're calling from, and the #1 benefit that your customers get from your product or service. So if you'd like me to open up your phone line, raise your hand, and I will unmute you. And if you do not want me to open up your phone line, you could answer the question in the question box. Your name, where you're calling in from, and the #1 benefit that your customers get from your product or service. Okay, we have Mary G. Mora on the line calling in from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And she's offering customized programs that enhance clients' objectives. Okay, so you enhance clients' objectives. I'm going to challenge you to go a little further with that, Mary. What do they get? What's the biggest benefit they get when you say enhance their objectives? Give me more of a specific. When your clients are sitting in bed at night thinking about their business or thinking about whatever it is that they do, and they're thinking, I really need to blank, and therefore I need to work with Mary. So do they think I really need to enhance my objectives? No, there's something that they think about. What is it? I really need to blank, so I really need to start working with Mary. So I'm going to challenge you to push that one a little bit further. Joyce from Lynchburg, Virginia. I'm so excited that you jumped on. I know I got you the information last minute. And Joyce, do you know what the #1 benefit that your clients or customers get from you? Okay, you offer fashionable and organization products. Okay, so that is what you offer, what they get. How does that benefit them? What do they get as how does it enhance their life? How does it impact them? So again, I'm going to challenge you to go a little bit further with that. Mary, keynote speakers that receive standing ovations, training consultants that develop in-house programs, coaches that provide assistance to entrepreneurs and individuals in business and life. Okay, awesome. Awesome. And we have Carol calling from Cupertino, California. You're a realtor at Coldwell Banker. Awesome. And Carol, what's the #1 benefit that your clients get from you? Steve, calling in from Washington, D.C. Welcome, Steve. Steve, we're local. We need to cross paths at some point. I'm in Alexandria. And Andrea. Andrea's from England. Oh, Andrea, this must be really, really late at night for you. You must be a night person. Your #1 benefit is releasing their fear that's preventing them from success. Of course, I love that. Definitely some synergy with you and I there. And Steve, #1 benefit. #1 benefit is relief from chronic pain, including back pain, knees, hip joints, etc., and breathing. I love that. Thank you, Steve. Oh, it's only 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay. All right, let's see. Did everybody get a chance to, everyone that's, we have 5 of you who are on the line live. I have heard from some people that are going to listen to the recording. So this is good, so I'll be able to get input from all of you. And oh, Andrea, it's 1 o'clock in the morning your time. I gotcha. Well, thank you for staying up with us. And you've got people from California on the line as well. So we have all kinds of time zones going here. Awesome. So you'll notice I asked the #1 benefit. I didn't really ask what your offer is, what your feature is, what your product is, and that's going to set the tone for what we talk about over these next couple of weeks. I have another question for you. When I named this program and the live event that I did a month or so ago, I named it The Sales Generation. So I'd like to ask you, the sales generation, what does that conjure up for you? Where do you think I got that name? Oh, and while we're waiting for that, Carol put in her benefit. Very personalized service when buying or selling a home, offered with honesty by a realtor with 30-plus years of experience. Awesome. So yes, I'm asking the sales generation, what does that conjure up for you, or where do you think I got into that? We are all in sales, all ages are involved. Awesome. The reason why people choose to work with, I don't understand the question, Andrea. The reason why people choose to work with you? Anybody else? Anybody else have a guess for where my thought process was coming from when I said the sales generation? Well, it's around the fact that I come from a background, and I'm thinking many of you do too, where sales was a dirty word. It had very negative connotation, and it still does, of course, in a lot of places. Salespeople had a really bad name as being pushy, overly aggressive, just out for themselves, et cetera, et cetera. My father hated salespeople, and I picked up on that from a very early age. And during the course of my career, as I've sort of adjusted my own philosophy, I learned that I can be a successful salesperson and do it in a way that's true to myself and still matches my values and who I am and my brand, et cetera. And so I've been on a mission to try to change the reputation of sales. And I know I'm not alone in this, because once I started putting this out there, I've become connected to more and more people who are on the same page. So the sales generation, what that conjures up for me is, yes, it's a new generation of selling. And it applies to everybody, and it's much more people-focused. It's all about people and connection and relationship and authenticity. So I am on a mission to change the face of selling. And I call it the new sales landscape. So that's where that came from, and you're going to see the theme of this throughout these sessions over the next couple of weeks. Okay. So let's talk about desired outcomes for this program. I'm going to share with you my desire, what I hope to accomplish with you and for you. And then I want you to share with me anything additional that you want to make sure we accomplish, any additional outcomes that you want to have. And for those of you who are taking notes, on page 1 in your workbook, there's a section for desired outcome. So I recommend that you write down what your desired outcomes are. But my wish for us is that when we are through with this program, you'll know the steps to creating a customized sales generating blueprint. And you'll be able to get portions of your blueprint done. So you're not going to have it all done over the next 2 weeks. I mean, you could if you wanted to develop hours and hours and hours to it. It's something that is going to take time over time. But if we can sort of plot out what we believe your customized sales generating blueprint needs to look like in total, what I bring to the table with my experience is I can say, okay, if you focus on this one thing here, this is going to give you the biggest return right now. And then once you implement this thing, then we'll implement thing number 2. So in other words, really prioritizing where to focus on your development of your blueprint so that you know how to flesh it out over time and to make it work for you. Also, which kind of goes along with that next bullet point, begin the journey of deciding what will work for you. Gain nuggets from each expert. I basically mean from each other. That should be more each other. But you're each experts in your own way. You each have experiences that you can learn from each other. When we had this Sales Generation Live a month or so ago, the participants got a ton from each other because they were able to share things that they've tried. They were able to help each other come up with new ideas or to make decisions about different things to try. So I highly recommend that you use each other. And as a result, you're going to learn the benefits to being part of a sales generation community. One of the things about being a small business owner is that it can be very, very lonely. We're kind of on our own a little bit. And even when we do mingle with other small business owners, we're usually not talking about our challenges so much. We're usually putting our best face forward. So I find that is that's a disservice. It's unfortunate because when I work in a large company and I'm working with a sales team or I'm working with sales people stretched out throughout the country, their success builds on each other's momentum. And they have the advantage of a brain trust of multiple people. And that's my whole goal here, is for you to have the benefit of the brain trust of multiple people. All right, so what else? What additional desired outcomes, other than the ones that we have on the page here, any of the bullet points that you see in front of you, what additional desired outcomes do you want? What else are you looking for from this program? So go ahead and put that in the question box. Or that any time that you want to speak instead of write, all you need to do is raise your hand. Okay, Andrea wants great questions to ask prospects in order to close a sale. Awesome. So Andrea, on page 1 in your notes, I want you to write that down because I want to make sure that as we go through these sessions, if we don't cover that by the end, that, which actually I know for sure we are, but if we don't cover it to your satisfaction, I want to make sure that you've got a reminder to yourself to remind me that you want more help in that area. So great questions to ask prospects in order to close a sale. And that's awesome because that just happens to be, one of my fortes. What else? Any other desired outcomes that any of you want? Carol, Joyce, Mary, Stephen? Okay, we'll move right along. Oh, there we go. Yeah, see, there is a little bit of a delay in the question box. Mary, help build confidence to sell. Awesome. Same goes for you, Mary. Write that down in your desired outcomes. I want to make sure that we get that done for you. I have lots and lots of resources on that particular subject. Stephen, nothing specific to add. Questions, community, support, confidence. Absolutely. Good. Good. Yeah, make sure you guys connect with me on Facebook. I think Mary was the only one that's connected with me so far. So connect with me to make sure that you can connect with each other. Joyce, you're in a home party plan business, want ways to get as many bookings as well as sales of products. I hope to recruit others to work in my business. Awesome. You know what, Joyce, remind me at some point, I did a program that was specifically for businesses like this, and I did a whole session on recruiting others. So remind me to send you the recording of that. Because, I mean, we'll talk about sales in general here, but we don't necessarily talk about recruiting other people to be part of your team. Carol, greater comfort in the sales conversation and with more types of people. Excellent. Okay, Stephen, good. I haven't gotten your Facebook yet, but I will. Mary, you'd be interested also? Okay. Yeah, I think I remember, Mary, that you've got a home business that you do as well. Andrea, know what software to use to help you organize your time and appointments. Fabulous. I can share with you, and make note of this, because it should come up as we go through this whole process, because it's sort of involved in some of the other steps. But if it doesn't, again, like I said, flag me so we make sure we cover it. Great. Okay, good. Awesome. All right, so let's get started with focus. The first step in our creating a customized sales generating blueprint. And if you're following along in the workbook, filling out what the faces of the new sales landscape is, you'll see that it's focus, attract, connect, engage, and serve. And I spent a good amount of time in the last introductory preview that was called How to Build Your Customized Sales Blueprint. I spent a lot of time in that session around the why. Why do you want to have this process, and why do you want to flesh it out? So I'm not going to spend a lot of time about that here so that we can dig in more deeply into each step. But it's focus, which is all about creating your foundation. Attract, which is how are people going to find you or know where you are or come to you. Connect, how are you going to establish a relationship with them. Engage, how are you going to be able to have a deeper connection to the point where you know that the two of you should be working together. And serve, how do you ultimately deliver your service? So that's the faces of the new sales landscape, with the first piece being on focus. Focus, as you can see, this is all what you need to do before you start executing on any plan. This is all the foundation work. And any time that you get stuck or you hit a slump or feel like you're hitting a wall, come back to your focus. Come back to these things that we're going to be covering tonight, and it will help kickstart you in the right direction. So the first piece of this being mindset. So let's talk about mindset and thinking about what is your knee-jerk reaction to the question, why aren't your sales results stronger? What is it that comes to mind when you think about that question? So this is all around how do you think about selling? Does it make you feel icky? Do you have a history like mine where you sort of had some preconceived notions? Maybe you had some bad experiences as a customer and thought, I would never want to be like that. Maybe you had things that have sort of formed how you feel about it. Well, it's critical that you start reprogramming that mindset. And the way that I do that with my clients is I take them through the 6-step fear-busting process. And we're going to dig into some of these steps tonight. The 6-step fear-busting process. So number 1, identify roadblocks. On page 2 in your workbook, there is a place for you to write in your roadblocks. So I want you to think about the questions I just asked and write down your answers. Why aren't your sales results stronger? What is getting in your way of selling more, better, more consistent, etc.? What are those reasons? And as you write some of those down, I want you to submit some in your question box right now. Put down at least one, each of you put in one obstacle that's getting in your way and submit that in the question box. Okay, Mary, your mind tells you that you're not a salesperson. Okay. Knowing how to overcome objections. Okay, so that's getting in your way. Thank you, Andrea. What else? Desire to minimize my own stress, don't deal with difficult people, and fear of the unknown with people, getting into negative situations with them. Okay, Carol. So, yeah, you want to keep your stress down, and you don't like dealing with difficult people. You don't want to get into negative situations with them. Of course, that would get in your way. That makes sense. What else? Okay, so my challenge to you, Andrea, not knowing the right process, okay, or feeling like you don't know the right process, and Joyce, I get numerous excuses from customers why they can't buy my products. How do I overcome the objections? Okay, so you're sort of anticipating that you're going to get objections, and you're not prepared to get that to handle those. Great, good. All right, so here's the point of this exercise, and sometime between now and our next session on Thursday, I want you to flesh out this exercise more. I want you to, in the box on page 2 in your workbook under roadblocks, I want you to write in everything that you can think of that's getting in your way. Everything. Every excuse that pops into your mind, even if it's a good, valid reason, I want you to write it down. If it seems like a crazy, silly reason, I want you to write it down. Every single one. Stephen, I totally understand. Your obstacle is feeling patient and a bit overwhelmed. Yeah, and Steve, I think you're relatively new in the launch of your business, so I think that's I don't know where I got that idea, but I think that when you're in that stage, you absolutely can be really overwhelmed in terms of where to look first and what to do first. So part of your homework is going to be fleshing out your roadblocks. Now, I've done this exercise with hundreds of salespeople, and I'm not talking just small business owners and entrepreneurs like yourself. I'm talking career salespeople. People have been doing it for years and for decades in some cases. And typically, if I'm live in the room with them and sort of collect their responses on a flip chart, similar to what I did with the question box here, they kind of come down to categories. Like all the obstacles, they fall into 3 different categories. And one of them is external reasons, like what are some examples of it? None of you guys gave me external reasons, but things like the economy, or the competition in my industry is so fierce, or I have a competitor that's just down the street from me, or things that are sort of outside your control. So that's one category of roadblocks that I hear. The second category is somehow related to time. And Steve, yours was a little bit around that with being overwhelmed, but somehow related to time. And then the third, everything else falls under the category of I don't like it or I'm uncomfortable. And pretty much all the obstacles that you guys shared with me tonight fall under that third category. Don't like it, not comfortable. So if we can turn that around, if we can find pieces of it, of selling that you enjoy, and get to a point where you're comfortable with it, then things are going to really take care of themselves. First of all, any of the time reasons take care of yourselves, because let's be honest, we make time for the things that we like and we're comfortable with, and the things that we enjoy doing, we make time for it. And anything that's an external reason, if, as you're making your list, anything that's an external reason, I want you to just cross, after you're done with your list, cross out all the external reasons. We don't care about competition. We don't care about the economy. We don't care about these things that we don't have any control over. So let's just get it out of our head and focus on the things that we can control. So we absolutely can control the things that are around I don't like it or I'm not comfortable. And when I take this further and I talk to salespeople about what they love about selling, actually, let me ask you that question. What do you like about selling? What piece of selling do you enjoy? What do you like about selling? Solving someone's problem. Yep, absolutely, Mary. Getting to know what people want. Love hearing about their passions. Yes, that's great, Andrea. Yep. So it's interesting because when I talk to when I do a similar thing with salespeople, no matter where they're coming from, the answers that I hear are very similar to what Mary said and Andrea said. Carol, helping people, getting to know them, helping them learn what they need to make great decisions. Steve, I really enjoy being in the conversation with people, out of my head, away from my computer, connecting with people about their needs, their interests, their passions. Absolutely. Absolutely. See, these are the exact answers that I get across the board. I like to help people. I like to solve problems. I like to be connecting with them. I enjoy that relationship piece. So and nobody mentioned it here, but if we talked about it long enough, somebody would say, I enjoy bringing in the money when it happens. I enjoy the cha-ching. There's a little bit of a high when you make that next sale. Joyce, sharing products that are attractive and useful. If I can get people to see and examine them, I can find out what they like and how I can help them. Yep. Cool. Yes. And the money. The money. Yes. And that, like I was saying, these are the answers that I hear across the board. So when you look at all the things that we don't like about selling, we don't like the difficult people. We don't like the confrontation. We don't like when they have objections. We don't want to seem pushy. We don't like it when they say no. We don't like it when it gets overwhelming or tough. So when you take that list and you compare it to the list of the positives, here's the general conclusion that I have come to, that I came to a long time ago. And I'm not sharing any rocket science here. Generally, we like the things that are within our control, and we don't like the things that are outside our control. So if we like the things that are within our control, and we don't like the things that are outside our control, then one of the ways that everybody on this call, can get a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more enjoyment out of the whole sales process is to maintain control of the process more. So as we go through these sessions, maintaining control of the process is key, and it's going to be a theme that's going to recur over these sessions. Maintaining control of the process. You're not going to control the outcome. The customer has that final privilege. They decide yay or nay, but you can control the entire interaction all the way up to that point and even beyond that point. And when you start to do that, you'll see some of the anxiety or some of the reluctance or some of the fear dial down, and it becomes more comfortable until it gets to be second nature. And I'm speaking to you as someone who was a very reluctant. Like I said, I disliked it. I had, and I was scared to death of it. And this process, this 6-step fear busting process that I'm sharing with you, this is the process that I went through over a couple of years' time for me, and I didn't know I was going through it. But this is what I went through to evolve from being a fearful potential salesperson to a nationally recognized salesperson, sales leader, generating millions of dollars in revenue. So that's where this process comes from. So that is why we are going to be keeping in line with having a process throughout. So first step, identifying your roadblocks. We got through that. Second step, reconnecting with your passion. Reconnecting with your passion is all about getting back to why you decided to do this to begin with. And actually, when I asked you guys the question, what do you like about selling, the things that you mentioned, those are the things that are closely in line with your passion. But like when you were a child and people came up to you and asked you what you wanted to be when you grew up, I doubt you said salesperson. It wasn't something that was, on your radar. You said, I want to be a cowboy, or I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be a ballet dancer, or, whatever it is that you said. And the same thing happened when you launched your own business. There was something that you were passionate about. So the second step in this process is to reconnect with your passion. So here's what I want you to do on this. This is on page 2 under benefits, and I'm going to make this part of your homework as well because I do want to move on. But we will visit this when we follow up next. What I want you to do with reconnecting with your passion, and this is key. I want you to ask yourself, how does it benefit your clients to work with you? The question that I asked you at the beginning of the session, but I'm challenging you to dig deeper. How does working with you, with your product or your service, impact their life? How does it impact their time, their health, their relationships, their money, or anything else that are considered core values? How does it impact them? And I want you to take some time and write all of those things down. Don't skimp on this exercise because this is the basis of the entire rest of your sales message. And this piece of the exercise is what's going to keep you going throughout the entire process. So I want you to list out each and everything that they get. How does it impact their life? How does it impact their time? How does it impact their health, etc.? And I'm going to, ask you to share that with me when we get back together. And then once you have that listed out, I'm looking at the ripple effect. I want you to take it one step further. How does it affect their loved ones or the people around them? How does, when your client works with you, has your product or service, how does it impact their family, their friends, their coworkers, their supervisors, or if they're in a corporate environment, their vendors, their employees? I want you to take it to like 2 degrees of separation. How does it impact those people? So once they've had their life impacted, how is that rippling out to that next generation of people? And then last but not least, in the same box, I want you to ask, how does it benefit you for your clients to use your product or service? What's in it for you? So when you're done fleshing that out, I want you to look at it, absorb it, and see how working with you is a win-win-win all the way around the board. So that brings us to the third step of reprogram your thinking. And I've shared with you before in the intro calls that my thinking in terms of selling and your role as a salesperson, your role is to inspire the other person to take action, even if or whether or not that includes doing business with you. So it's to inspire the other person to take action, whether or not that includes doing business with you. So I want you to think about what happens if they don't take action. What is the consequence to them not taking action? And again, this is critical to knowing what your sales message is, and it's critical to helping you in your sales conversation. So write down, there's no spot in the workbook, but somewhere in there I want you to write down the consequences if they don't take action, if they don't move forward. So it's all about reprogramming your thinking about what selling is. Selling is promoting your passion. Selling is inspiring that other person to take action, whether or not it includes doing business with you. So it's selling them on taking action. Now, the downside of this is that some people misinterpret this piece. And they think, okay, well then that means that sounds great. That's fabulous news, Amy. I can be a nice salesperson. And a nice salesperson just, is a yes man, makes the person feel good, helps them come up with plans, and doesn't ever ask for the sale. Doesn't ever ask for money because that's not nice. And my response to that is you're not doing that person any favors. Look back to your little box, your little page of benefits, of all the win-win-win, all the positive impact that you can make, and you owe it to that other person to give them every opportunity to have the best tools and resources to make that happen. Sometimes being a nice salesperson means being tough. It means being firm. It means following up, and we'll get to that later in another session. I want to share with you a little story. I was on the receiving end of this not too long ago. On a personal note, personally, I had a really tough year last year. I had several things happen in my personal life that were very difficult. You know how sometimes we just have those rough times, and I definitely had some tough stuff going on in my personal life. And as a result of that, I gained a lot of weight in a relatively short amount of time. And it continued to come on over this past winter until it got to the point where at the beginning of this year, I mean, I don't feel right when I gain a lot of weight, when I'm on the heavier end of my spectrum. I don't feel, obviously I don't have the energy, but I don't feel like me when that happens. And I was very frustrated and wasn't very disciplined in what I wanted to do. So through my networking, I met someone who was like a nutritionist, an expert in health and wellness. And she came highly recommended from some people that I knew. And I knew her from networking. I knew of her. And so I told her I wanted to talk to her. And so we scheduled a conversation, and she asked a lot about what was going on with me and what I wanted to accomplish, and what my desired outcome was. And she asked me a lot of personal questions that I shared with her. And I told her this was something that I really, really, really wanted, and it was. And then, for whatever reason, during that conversation, well, I did have reasons. I was in the midst of planning my live event, but that was my excuse. That was my reason. I was not able to commit to her at that time during our conversation. I just couldn't. I knew I wasn't going to be able to focus on making the changes, the day-to-day changes that I needed to make. I just knew that it wasn't a time for me. And she said, okay, so I'll check back. But I did tell her I definitely wanted to work with her. This was something I wanted to do. This was something very important to me. I had to turn things around, and I definitely wanted to work with her. And so she told me that she would get back to me. And she did. She called me back like a week or so later and left me a voice message, and I didn't call her back. And I never heard from her again. So here's my question to you. Why didn't I call her back? I want you to put yourself in my shoes for a moment. Why do you think I didn't call her back? Andrea, maybe you didn't want to face the source of the reasons for being there in the first place. Good, very good. Anybody else? Why didn't I call her back? You felt unsure of your commitment to go after the results. Great, good, Carol. You were focusing on your upcoming live event, not ready to make a decision. Deep down, did you really want to change, or you weren't willing to make the commitment? Thank you, Joyce. And it's some, oh, Mary, you got one for me? Not ready to hear what she had to say. Yeah, it's some combination of what all of you said. I mean, I made a lot of excuses in my mind of why I didn't call her back at that particular point. It wasn't the right time. I had a million things going on. But in my heart of hearts, I wanted her to sort of wake me up. I wanted her to call me back and say, Amy, come on. Let's get real here. You told me that you wanted to XXXX, and you were tired of feeling like this. We need to work this out. I wanted her to come back to me. I mean, on some level, that's what I wanted. I wasn't really conscious of it at the time. It wasn't until I was thinking back about this whole experience. But the problem is that what she was probably thinking, and you refer to a situation of your own when you have followed up on a lead or a prospect and they didn't call you back. And I've heard this from my clients, even while I've been coaching them, I've heard this. They'll call them back once or twice, and they'll go, well, they're not returning my calls, so they probably decided that they're not interested, or they went somewhere else, or maybe they didn't really think this was going to help them. There's a lot of assumptions going on, and typically, as the salesperson, the business owner / salesperson, we're thinking that those reasons are related to us. My reason for not calling her back had nothing to do with her. It had nothing to do with my desire to work with her. It had nothing to do with what I thought of her. So I want you to keep that in mind when you start thinking about what your role is in all of this. Oh, and as a quick follow-up to the story, I never called her back. She never called me back, but I'm working in another program. I'm successfully losing weight. But I could have done it just as easily with her, but something else came up, and I ended up doing that other program. So I want you to keep that in mind and think about the fact that reprogram your thinking about what selling is. It's all about selling that person to take action no matter what that action is. And your follow-up with someone is part of your customer service. And we will wrap that up with a bow in our last session when we get to the last piece of the sales plan, but your follow-up is part of your service. So there was a little part of me that thought, if she so easily let me get away with not returning one phone call, how strong was she going to be with me when I kept procrastinating on exercise, or when I kept resisting the meal plan, or whatever. So there was a little bit of me wondering, again, it wasn't a conscious thing, it was sort of underlying, but as I really look back on it, I had to wonder. It's a reflection of your overall service, so keep that in mind. Personal style, the next step. So we've gone through identify roadblocks, reconnect with your passion, reprogramming your thinking, determining your personal style. So on page 3 in your workbook, there's some questions on there about your personal style. Do you consider yourself an extrovert or an introvert? How do you behave at networking events? Are you better at verbal or written communication? Do you do better with large groups or small groups? Are you comfortable in front of an audience? Are you comfortable approaching strangers? Do you prefer talking on the phone or face-to-face? And do you prefer talking on the phone or texting? So again, I'd like you to answer those questions. You don't have to answer them now in the question box, but after this session, I want you to answer these questions for yourself, because the point is you need to find out what your personal style is, and your personal style being really your personal communication style. I probably should add that in there. What's your personal communication style? How do you communicate? How do you like to interact with people? I'm sort of a blend between extrovert and introvert. And you know, it's important to know whether or not you enjoy meeting people fresh, like you enjoy meeting lots of people that you don't know and you're just meeting them, or if it takes a while to warm up to you. It's important to know all these things. A great example of this is I worked with a client who was in advertising sales for a publication. And he had this order of event, like when I asked him to walk me through his sales process, his very first step to his process was calling on the phone businesses and trying to set up a time to come in and talk to them about advertising. And then once he would go in there and talk to them, he was great. I mean, he liked, you know, talking to them face to face. He also loved meeting brand new people at networking. He was the one people that would see a group of people talking and be bold enough to go up and, you know, break into, you know, introduce himself and get to know everybody. So he was bold. He had no fear around approaching people. However, he hated the phones. He hated making phone calls. He hated bothering people in that way with that method. And so what I challenged him is, okay, well, as long as you have the very first step of your sales process includes part of your personal communication style that you hate, I mean, you know, it includes something that you really, really hate to do, you're going to put off doing that. No wonder you don't have enough appointments. No wonder you don't talk to enough people. No wonder you're not making enough sales, because you're hating that first step. So I challenged him to just go visit people, go make cold calls. You know, and there's some people who just, I couldn't do that. That's not me. I'm not even, you know, the Fear Busted Sales Coach is not that bold. I don't like to walk in cold to some place, you know, a business, and, you know, try to get an appointment. He was fine with it. And he immediately, you know, the light bulb came on for him, and he's like, you know what, you're right. And that whole next week, he traveled around to his territory, went in and visited people. He had a blast doing it, got a bunch of appointments. I mean, the results were immediate. So what I'm telling you is be aware of your personal style. And then it moves on to number 5, which is customize your process. So as we design this sales generating blueprint over the next couple of weeks, I want you to keep your personal communication style in mind. So, for example, doing webinars and teleclasses will be something that's going to come up as a method, as a strategy when we talk about attraction and connecting with potential people. If you're not comfortable expressing yourself verbally and you're better expressing yourself in written communication, then you probably want to focus more of your energy on ways to connect with people with writing. Now, this isn't to say that there's not going to be times where you have to go outside your comfort zone, and elements of your sales process may include things that you're less comfortable with. I'm not saying that. I'm saying from where you're starting from now, if we can build a blueprint that includes as many of the things that you're really good at and you like doing the most, let's start there. Once you master that, we can evolve the blueprint to include other things, because your confidence is going to grow. You're going to build on that momentum, and you're going to feel better about stretching yourself. So that's customizing your process, and then last but not least is putting your process in action. That's what we are going to talk about when we have our one-on-one sessions, is putting your process in action. How are we going to make that happen? So before I move on to the next step, are there any questions about the 6-step fear busting process? Let's put it this way. Raise your hand if you're good, if you're ready to move on. Okay. Joyce, how about you? Are you ready to move on? You didn't raise your hand. Good so far, Steve. Thank you, Carol. Good, 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 good. Okay, Joyce, are you good? All right. We're going to move on. And I know we're running to the end of our time. And one of the things that I should have said at the top of this call, and I believe I said it in some of the intro sessions, I'm going to take the time that it needs to get through our content. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to keep you on the phone for hours for each session. I'm going to stick to my 90 minutes that I committed to. However, if I have to offer a 5th session instead of the 4th sessions, whatever it takes to make sure we get through everything. Sometimes it's hard to predict exactly how long each module is going to take, but I really want to make sure that we get to everything. So let's take the rest of my time talking about our next piece. Opportunity times engagement equals quantity. Quantity times quality equals revenue. Raise your hand if you are a numbers person. Are you a numbers person? Do you like numbers? Joyce, good. You like numbers. Mary, good. Anybody else? Okay, good. Yeah. So we have 2 numbers people on here. I am not a numbers person, but I've kind of become one throughout my sales career. I've kind of become more of a numbers person because I kind of look at it as a little bit of a game and a little bit of a puzzle. If any of you guys like games and puzzles, the sales equation, that's what the sales equation is like. So it's important for us to have a formula that we're keeping track of our numbers and where we are. I mean, there's a lot of things that I can share with you that support this. But one of the reasons why you want to know your numbers and be on top of your numbers is because it will help save you time. It's going to help you get the biggest results in the shortest amount of time if you can do a little bit of diagnosis, analysis and diagnosis. That's what it's about. A great example of this is one of the things that I've done in my quest to lose weight, hopefully I'm not going to talk about this too much over the next couple of weeks, but in my quest to lose weight, I formed a Facebook group with my friends who were also trying to lose weight, and we kind of shared results and helped each other out, yada, yada, yada. Well, one of the things that I noticed is that I did better, and I do better, if I weigh myself every single day. If I know that, even though that goes against what a lot of people recommend, and we talked about this in my little Facebook group. Some people weigh themselves once a week. Some people don't at all. They want to know how it feels in their clothes, yada, yada, yada. But I needed to weigh myself every single day, and it was because it gave me that clear picture of where I was, and it motivated me through that next day. And that's the same kind of thing that you want to do with knowing your numbers. It doesn't mean you have to be on top of them every single day, but you have to take time to kind of look at them. What you're seeing on your screen right now, these are the 2 sales equations for your business. And you'll be able to focus on these at any given time and be able to diagnose where to focus your time and energy in your business to increase your sales results. So opportunity times engagement equals quantity. Opportunity is your number of leads, your number of possibilities out there. So it's all the people that are potential customers of you that you come in contact with. And then the engagement is the percentage of those people who raise their hand and say, what you do is your topic is of interest to me. There's something about what you offer that interests me. So you have a huge audience of potential. That's your opportunity. Engagement is your percentage of that audience that says, huh, that sounds like that could be good to me. And then you take those two numbers, your opportunity times engagement, and that gives you your quantity of sales conversations, of designated point of sale transaction interaction that you have with your customer. Now this first equation typically happens twice in the sales process. So for example, Stephen, you may have people finding your website online through various methods, but you have sort of a number of people who come and visit your FlexAware website. And then a certain percentage of those will reach out to contact you or take some sort of action. And I'm assuming, and this is an assumption on my part, I'm assuming that to do business with you, at some point there's some sort of personal interaction. It's probably a phone conversation of some sort. So your opportunity is all those people coming to your site. Your engagement is the people who come to your site that say, I want to do something about this or find out about this. And so they contact you, and then they set up a sales conversation. So that's the first time that the equation happens. So then it happens again. Your opportunity is your number of sales conversations times your engagement. That's the percentage of people that you have sales conversations with that say, yes, let's do business together, equals quantity. Those are your number of sales. So you go through those two. You go through that equation twice. And then your second equation is quantity times quality equals revenue. So your number of sales, your number of people said, yes, let's work together, times quality, your size of sale. How much are they investing in you or in themselves through you? And that equals revenue. So you're starting out with your entire potential audience. How many of them show interest in having a sales conversation? And then of your sales conversations, how many of them say yes, that they want to work with you? All right, I'm going to show you how this plays out. And unfortunately, I don't have this on the screen. So hopefully you do have a pen and paper. You have your notebook, your workbook that I gave you, or whatever, that you can write out this example. So let's use Steve as an example, and I'm just going to use some pretend numbers just for the sake of it. Let's say, Steve, you have 100 people visit your website. That's 100 for opportunity. Write down 100, everybody. Times, let's say, 20% of them show interest in learning more. So that equals 20 sales conversations. So you got 100 times 20% equals 20. Second row, you're going to do that equation again. Your opportunity is 20 sales conversations times, and let's say Steve closes 30% of the people that he talks to. And this is just all for ease of use. So 20 sales conversations times 30% equals 6 sales. Now, let's go to the third line, which is quantity times quality. So you take 6 as your quantity, 6 sales, and let's say, just for the sake of numbers, that the size of your average sale is $100. So your overall revenue is $600. So let's say that this reflects your reality. You look at this. And everybody on this line can do some version of this with their business. So write out what your numbers are and use any time frame that works right for you. You know, Carol, as a realtor, it's going to be a little bit different. You don't necessarily have sales conversations that turn into sales in the same week. It's a different thing. So you might want to do quarterly or, you know, whatever time, and as much of a rough guess estimate that you can, as close to reality as you can, to figure out what it is. So in our little example here with Steve, you know, he looks at his numbers and he's like, oh God, $600 in revenue is just not going to cut it. Well, if we want to increase that number, there's a lot of different ways that we can do it. We can go to that first opportunity. We can go to that 100 people who visit your website, and we can increase that and keep everything else the same. So if we were able to, you know, double that, doubling it would be 200 people times 20% would be 40 sales conversations. 40 times 30% would be 12 sales times 100. So you'd be doubling your, by doubling your traffic, you'd be doubling your sales to 1,200. So that's great. That's wonderful. Here's the clincher with this. This first number, this 100, this opportunity, this isn't necessarily a sales action. That is marketing. And to impact that number, the traffic, the number of people, takes the most time, the most energy, the most money to impact that number than any of the other pieces of the equation. So I say, let's keep that 100 the same. In fact, let's keep that whole first row the same. Let's keep 100 times 20% equals 20 sales conversations. Let's just help Steve get killer with the sales conversations. So he's going to learn some key questions to ask. He's going to learn a process to follow. He's going to learn how to overcome objections. So instead of closing 30%, we get him to a 60% close. So 60% of 20 sales conversations is 12 sales. So that's another way that he can double his revenue. And he hasn't spent a lot of money on pay-per-click advertising and SEO optimization and yada, yada, yada. He's focused on refining one of his skills. He's also not doing any more sales conversations, so he's not taking any more time. You know, it takes just as much time as it did before. He's just focusing on that one skill. And we could even go back and do it another way. We could do nothing but double your price. So keep the first line of equations the same as they were. Keep the second ones the same as they were. And then, so we've got 6 sales times $200 each is $1,200. So sometimes that's really, really easy. And in fact, there's a lot of mentors and coaches out there who are telling you the quickest way for you to increase your revenue is to increase your prices, bring up your average sale. And that is absolutely true, absolutely positively true. However, if you don't have a strong sales conversation, if you don't have confidence in what you're doing with the rest of your sales process, the minute you attempt to up your prices or up what your average sale in whatever way, your close percentage will drop. Your percentage of people that will say, because your ability to impact that conversation will go down because you didn't have the right tools to support asking for more money. I'm hoping that makes sense to you guys. So those are your sales equations. So what questions do you have about the sales equation? And if you don't have a question, I want to hear from each and every one of you a question or a comment about the sales equations. A question or a comment about the sales equation? Andrea, it's good, simple. Okay, good. Good, I'm glad you got it. Makes sense. I see that the key is in the conversation. Yes. Increasing your skills definitely would increase your sales. Yes. Useful to see the first equation is one that we go through twice. Good. Now, here's the thing. When you analyze your sales equation, it's not always going to point you to improving your sales conversation. It's not always going to point you to increasing your average sale. Sometimes it will point you not only to increasing your original traffic or increasing that first number, sometimes it will point to increasing that percentage. So in the example that we used for Stephen, we said that when people came to his website, 20% of the people wanted a sales conversation. We could work on getting that 20% up. My point being, it's not always going to point you in the same direction all the time. It's going to be different. That's why whenever you get stuck with your sales, if you come back to this equation and play with it, it will tell you what to focus on. You may get to the point where your sales conversations are converting at a 50-60% rate, and that, depending on your industry, that may be about as good as you can get or want to get. And the same thing with your average sale. You might have hiked it up as much as you possibly can. So you got those other things all taken care of. So we have to focus on marketing. We have to focus on volume. Good. I'm glad you guys all got it. All right. So we are coming up at the end of our time tonight. Any pending questions or comments as we say good night? Carol, I'm not used to tracking the number of conversations. It varies a lot. Also, there's the decision whether to work with me and the decision about the product or which house to buy or which offer to take. Absolutely. Absolutely. So you would have like a different row of how it plays out. So and your opportunity is all the people that you come in contact with, with your networking, all the ways that you advertise yourself. So everybody who gets exposed to you that way, and then what percentage of them want to have a conversation with you. So I would start tracking your number of initial sales conversations. So how many people do you have that first conversation with? And it may or may not take you multiple conversations to get somebody to decide to do business with you. So if you look at those, and then your second row would be, okay, of the people that you're currently working with, how many of them make a decision to buy? How many of those turn into sales, and how many of them fizzle out into nothing? And then your quantity times quality is a little difficult too, because it depends on, the level of client that you're attracting in terms of the cost of the house that they're buying. All right. So I'm going to say thank you guys so much for hanging in there. Let's see. Joyce, you've given me a lot to think about, and I realize I have to dig deeper to figure this out. Yes, it does take a little bit of time. So do a little bit of thought process on the pieces of homework that I gave you. I'll send you a follow-up email in the morning reminding you of the homework pieces for Thursday night. Andrea, it's really late where you are, so I hope you have a really nice evening and sleep well. And good night to everyone else. Carol, Joyce, Mary, Stephen. Any questions that you have between times, email me, amy@fearbustonsales.com, amy@fearbustonsales.com, and connect with me on Facebook. Don't forget that. I'll put the reminder in the email as well. Mary, haven't had homework in a long time. Well, I'm glad I could give you some homework. I understand you guys are busy and have things to do, but the best that you can do some of this homework, the better off we're going to get as we go. All right. Thank you, Carol. I'm glad you like what we're doing so far, and I'll see all of you guys on Thursday. And also, if you want to call in, if you've got the ability to call in to listen to it over the phone while you're watching on the screen, then it might be easier for you to talk to me when you have questions, because I'm absolutely open to hearing your fabulous voices. So good night, take care, and have a good day tomorrow.